He was prolific in his time and one of the most celebrated poets in American history. He is today also one of the more forgotten of the great poets of Maine. Edwin Arlington Robinson was born at Head Tide in Alma, Maine, on December 22nd of 1869, to Edward and Mary Elizabeth Robinson. Soon after his birth, the Robinson family moved to Gardner, Maine, and they liked to vacation in Harpswell. It was there in Harpswell, while on vacation among the coastal tides, that Edwin's name would be chosen in a lottery held by a group of other vacationing women. One of 3 children, Robinson was educated locally at Mrs. William Worrell's private school in Gardner, then at the area public school where Robinson graduated from Gardner High School in 1888. Then, Edwin entered Harvard University 2 years later, but after just 2 years at Cambridge, Edwin withdrew from the ivy-covered institution and returned to his home in Maine. While at Harvard, the very first of his published poems had appeared in the Harvard Advocate, the university's own literary magazine. It was the start of something big for Edwin, even if the formal Ivy League education wasn't. Edwin was seen by some as a somewhat temperamental man who seemed bitter and withdrawn. Others found him witty and friendly. Robinson described his early life as being stark, dark, and unhappy. He suffered from hearing difficulties and troubled vision, which often made interactions difficult. Yet, Robinson held deep romantic affections for a young Farmingdale woman named Emma Shepherd. But Robinson was rejected by the woman, and she instead married Edwin's brother. It was a disappointment that Edwin would never forget. While at Gardner, Robinson found a great deal of support for his poetical aspirations. There, in 1896, Edwin penned his first book, The Torrent and the Night Before, which he self-published with locally donated money. His works in the volume were seen as cleverly written, with a new twist that shed the old veil of classic poetry and explored a new and shortened form of modern verse. By 1897, Edwin's next book, The Children of the Night, was published and also found a positive reception, though not a wide audience. He wrote of the working class of people and of overcoming the difficulties of life. And he wrote often of a place he called Tilbury Town, which was a thinly veiled disguise for Edwin's hometown of Gardner, Maine. The reference first appeared in the poem John Everell Down in the Torrent and the Night Before. By 1899, Edwin left Gardner for New York City to work on becoming what he always dreamed of being, a working writer, and more specifically, a working poet. Now in New York, Edwin befriended other writers, artists, and musicians, and this creative social world fed his hungry soul. And in New York, Edwin found popularity he had not known back in Maine. He also worked diligently on his next manuscript of poetry. By 1902, his third book, Captain Craig and Other Poems, was published. Robinson's work was finding an audience and a following had begun. Yet, though popularity with his work was rising, his fortunes had not. Edwin, needing money to survive, took a job as a fare collector in the New York City subway system. For Edwin, his life seemed pointless, and he deemed himself to be a failure. But his life was about to change. By 1905, a copy of The Children of the Night had caught the eye of Kermit Roosevelt, who then introduced the book to his father. When President Theodore Roosevelt read the book, he immediately invited Robinson to visit the White House. Yet Robinson was forced to decline. Edwin had been living a life with little monies available to him, and his wardrobe had become tired and frayed, and his appearance left him embarrassed. Not having what he deemed to be suitable clothing for a White House visit, he felt he had no choice but to decline the invitation. Teddy Roosevelt then suggested Robinson to a New York publisher, and the president also provided Robinson a better-paying sinecure position, a type of financial honorarium, at the Customs House in New York. The position paid $2,000 a year, which now allowed Robinson a steady income while he continued writing. This sinecure was the only one ever issued by President Theodore Roosevelt. Robinson then wrote his fourth book in 1910, his fifth in 1916, and his sixth in 1917. Robinson had indeed become a working poet, and when his sinecure ended in 1913, his books were finally affording him a modest enough income. In 1922, Robinson's 10th book, Collected Poems, had won Robinson his first Pulitzer Prize for poetry, and he was also considered for the 1923 Pulitzer as well, but he was beaten out by another Maine poet, Edna St. Vincent Millay. His 1924 book, The Man Who Died Twice, won Edwin a second Pulitzer in 1925, and his 1927 book, Tristram, then won Robinson his third Pulitzer Prize by 1928. Robinson would go on to write another 12 books of poetry between 1928 and 1935, and his works had finally become widely popular and were considered as some of the best and most modern American poetry ever written. Although he enjoyed a few relationships with other talented women artists and writers, Edwin never married and had no known children. His want of Emma, his first and unrequited love, had never waned. By 1934, Edwin was considered one of the greatest poets in the world, but he was also a sick man, diagnosed with an advanced form of cancer. Edwin penned his final work, King Jasper, by the early spring of 1935. Then, on April 6th of that year, Edwin Arlington Robinson died at New York's Cornell Hospital. He was 65 years old. Edwin's remains were cremated and his ashes were returned to Maine, though his parents and a brother had died. His old friends and former neighbors had not forgotten him. Even Emma, the love he could not forget, added flower petals to his urn. Edwin's ashes were interred in the family plot at the Oak Grove Cemetery in Gardiner, Maine. Today, Edwin Arlington Robinson is considered one of the greatest of all American poets. He was well regarded by his contemporaries, well received by readers, and well celebrated by scholars. His first Pulitzer Prize was awarded to him in 1922, and he went on to achieve a total of 3 of these coveted prizes in just 6 years' time. And Robinson wrote a total of 28 books of poetry and 2 stage plays, all within his impressive career. Edwin Arlington Robinson's great contributions to the world of poetry only adds to the rich and diverse record of many of the greatest names in literature. And today, 89 years since his passing, Maine's great poet, Edwin Arlington Robinson, is remembered as one of our greatest and more successful of our literary stories from Maine.